Scrimmage number 1 is coming up later this morning for Tennessee football spring practice. Top 5 Vols that need to show out. We'll talk about it here on a Wednesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Cain. Appreciate you for being here and taking some time, whether you're on your way to work, working out, in the cubicle, whatever time and wherever you're listening to us. We appreciate you for making this your first listen, your first watch. Shout out every dayers for making this show what it is. Of course, you can watch, listen, follow, subscribe, download, all that for free wherever you get your podcast, and of course, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Got a busy one coming up here today. In a matter of seconds, I'll give you my top 5 Tennessee football players that need to show out in the spring scrimmage this morning. I'll look at Tennessee Pro Day, which is going to follow the spring scrimmage here on a Wednesday, and then Josh Ward will talk a lot of Tennessee basketball in segment number 3. So, scrimmage number 1, that is coming up later this morning. It is coming up at about 9:30 in the morning. They're going to go over to Neyland Stadium and take part in some live football. It'll be scripted a little bit, the situational football. I'm sure that they're not going to be out there for a long time. In fact, I think Josh Heupel's scheduled to meet with us at about 11. So by the time you get over there and warm up, stretch, and all that, I bet they'll scrimmage for a little over an hour and then kind of call it a day. But it's one of those big days in terms of a camp. This is spring camp. This isn't fall camp, but this is spring camp. It kind of shows you where you are as a player on the depth chart and all that. And tomorrow is the day that I phrase as moving day, because after that first scrimmage, you'll come back in and see if you've on the depth chart, if you stay where you were, if you moved up because of your play, if you moved down, so on and so forth. So it's a big day coming up. And sure, there's already players who are out for spring and who are not going to be taking part in contact. Nathan Leacock and obviously Brew McCoy is going to be out, and Cam Seldon's not going to be playing, and Brian Grant. I mean, there's a laundry list of names who are limited for spring practice, kind of coming into it, that we already knew of. Peyton Lewis, a freshman, but Cam Seldon's probably not going to play in this scrimmage. Cooper Mays, I would be surprised if he got a whole lot of work. Again, it's an opportunity for a guy I'm going to talk about here in a moment to get more and more work. But I mean, Cooper Mays, you know what you got there. Keenan Peely, I'm sure they'll be careful with him as well. So we'll see who's out there and who's not. But here are the list of 5 Vols that I think need to really step up and show out and start kind of this next phase of camp on the right foot with a good spring scrimmage number 1. First, a couple of honorable mentions at the cornerback position: Jordan Matthews and Christian Conyer. I think Christian Conyers had a pretty solid start to spring camp. Would be great to see him make some moves. He's kind of the forgotten man of that cornerback trio from last season. And in that same regard, Jordan Matthews as well needs to continue to progress. Jalen Smith, the linebacker, I think has had a solid camp. Be good to see him, taking advantage of a limited Keenan Peely. Arian Carter's not scrimmaging. The name I should have mentioned earlier. Elijah Herring is not out there. So Jalen Smith is a guy that I think could really benefit from some extra snaps. Deshaun Bishop in that same regard. If Cam Seldon is not scrimmaging, then, it bumps everybody up in the pecking order. And, Deshaun Bishop and Khalifa Keith, who I'll speak on here in a moment, how they perform this spring, in my opinion, will determine if Tennessee goes out and seeks a running back in the transfer portal. So a big scrimmage coming up for the local product from Carnes High School. And then John Slaughter, I think, at the safety position as he continues to progress and try to jump in the rotation. Those are some honorable mentions. At number 5, we will go offensive guard now, Sham Umarov. Came in as an offensive tackle. He's a guy that still, reps a little bit of tackle, but he's slid down. He's trying to put himself in contention to, be in that starting guard conversation for fall camp. I still think he's a little ways away, and kind of taking, what Glenn Ellerby said earlier this week. I kind of sense that, yeah, he's done some nice things, but he still needs to learn and still needs to, he's not there yet, and that's fine. You're not supposed to arrive. But for a guy like Sham, it's amazing. Tennessee has still not started an offensive lineman that this current coaching staff has recruited from the high school ranks. Think about it. Tennessee's offensive line, every starter for every game that Josh Heupel's been here, either the previous coaching staff recruited those guys or they got them from the transfer portal. That's an issue moving forward. I mean, it is. I mean, sooner or later, you've got to not only hit on some of these guys, but they're just going to have to play. And I think Sham is probably the one that's closest to that. But Sham trying to start at the offensive guard position, and I think a solid first scrimmage is going to be important for him. He's a number 5. Number 4 is Khalifa Keith. Again, Cam Seldon is not going to scrimmage tomorrow. I'm sure they'll be really protective of Dylan Sampson. So a whole lot of run for, no pun intended, Deshaun Bishop and Khalifa Keith. How these two guys perform, I think, determines if Tennessee's going to go and try to get a running back in the transfer portal in the second window. Remember, Peyton Lewis is going to be coming on campus as a true freshman, but he's kind of out this spring. And no more Jabari Small, no more Jaylen Wright. So a lot of unknowns there at the running back position, but it's a great opportunity for Deshaun Bishop and this guy right here, Khalifa Keith, who Khalifa Keith is the biggest and more physical running back in the room, very similar to Cam Seldon. Excuse me. It's that time of the year, guys. Cam Seldon's much more athletic. But what a great opportunity for Khalifa Keith. At number 3, give me Jacoby Thomas, the transfer from Middle Tennessee State University. I think he's had a really strong start to spring practice. You can already tell that he's leading the groups. A lot of people said a lot of good things about him, and he's played a whole lot of football. He's polished, but still kind of integrating himself into the system and trying to lock down one of those safety spots, which I think that he will. But you need to ball out in these scrimmages. So Jacoby Thomas, a transfer at safety, comes into number 3. And number 2 is Vyson Lang. Kind of on that conversation about high school guys who have never started for this staff. Vyson Lang is trying to prove that he can be the true backup center, a guy that can be counted on to play in the interior guard and center, but also a viable option at center for Tennessee when it loses Cooper Mays to graduation next year. Tennessee's had safety nets with Jerome Carvin, with Ollie Lane, even with Dane Davis this year. But Vyson Lang's a guy that is on a mission to prove that he can be that guy, and he can snap football. He can snap the football in a game-like setting, and that starts in the scrimmage here. So Vyson Lang's at number 2, and then at number 1, I'll say Holden Staes. Ethan Davis, of course, is in this conversation, but the tight end position is so important. Sure, Lance Hurd's going to be huge for this offense. Whoever starts at left guard is going to be huge for this offense in terms of the importance of Nico moving the football, scoring points. But the tight end position is so important in this offense, it's got to hit. And you don't, again, have that safety net, and it's not necessarily the same safety net as I was talking about on the offensive line because, Jacob Warren, Princeton Fant played a lot of football. But you don't have a Jacob Warren that's been on roster for 6 years. He's gone. He's taken part in the pro day, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Tennessee's got to have Holden Staes hit at tight end because Ethan Davis and Holden Staes are both going to play tight end. It is so very important for the success of this offense that a tight end is not only good at catching the ball, but blocking, H-back, splitting out wide, everything that's important for this team in regards to a tight end. Holden Staes needs to continue to grow and progress. And so that's kind of my list. Number 5, Sham. Number 4, Khalifa Keith. Number 3, Jacoby Thomas. 2, Vyson Lang. 1, Holden Staes. Honorable mentions, some Jordan Matthews, Christian Conyer, Jalen Smith, Deshaun Bishop, and John Slaughter. It's an important scrimmage for a lot of guys, and I can't wait to see how they perform, and I can't wait to see what we hear from Josh Heupel after the spring scrimmage and what we hear from people who have boots on the ground. Us media, we can't. We're not allowed in there, but, we talk to people who are, and so I can't wait to hear some of that feedback. So we'll see what happens. Lance Hurd's got to continue to progress. Dane Davis, I think, is a great swing guy, and, he's playing more guard this spring, and it'll be a big scrimmage for him and some other guys as well. But these are kind of the guys that I'm looking out for tomorrow or later today in the spring scrimmage. So we'll see what happens. I'll tell you everything that Josh Heupel said. I'll tell you everything that I heard about spring scrimmage number 1. That's coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Vols. Hey, Pro Day is going to happen later today after the spring scrimmage. Who's going to be in Pro Day and what should we be looking for? That's coming up next as we continue on with Locked On Vols. Is your bracket already busted? Are you tired of the same old daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, you cross your fingers, you hope for the best, or losing on the last leg of your pick'em entry? Introducing Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent and you can play with your friends and not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats. Strategize with your partner to boost your odds and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the social DFS movement today that we call Better Together. It provides a sense of camaraderie, enhances the social experience of watching sports, makes you realize the DFS is not fun alone, but like a lot of other things, it's better when you're doing it with friends and family together. Shows the synergy from working together and gives you better chances of winning when it's all said and done. The team. So I encourage you to go ahead and download Better Together now from the App Store and sign up using the promo code Locked On for a chance to win your share of $1,000 in cash prizes. Remember, that promo code is Locked On, LOCKON, LOCKEDON, Locked On, because winning alone is fun, but it's always better together. I want to tell you also about our friends over at Fire TV. It's your destination for sports, live games, and highlights. In-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as Fire TV Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analytics, analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channel on the Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. More to come here on Locked On Vols as we continue with the Wednesday show. All right, so Tennessee football is going to take part in the annual Pro Day, and it happens every year around spring practice. They kind of make it for media like me, make it a long day in terms of it usually follows a scrimmage so that the coaches can be out there and watching and talking and networking, and they kind of get their work done in the morning, the current team. And then after lunch, they go to class, hang out, go to meetings or whatever. But the former Vols, the recent former Vols, will be there on hand and showing scouts and NFL personnel and everybody else what they can do on, the weight bench, the vertical leap, the L drill, position drills, all that and a whole lot more. It's a pro day is important, especially for those who did not get an invitation to the NFL Combine. Those who got invitations to the NFL Combine from Tennessee, of course, were quarterback Joe Milton, running back Jaylen Wright, and cornerback Kamal Hadden. I believe there's only about 400 athletes or so that get invitations to the NFL Combine. So there's so many more guys who are going to get drafted that weren't at the Combine, and that's why these pro days are important. So Tennessee's got a laundry list full of names who are going to take part in the pro day tomorrow. If you're at home or at work, the SEC Network is actually going to feature various live shots between noon and 3 Eastern time. It's not going to be like a live broadcast, from what I've been told. I don't think it's allowed to be kind of a live broadcast, but again, kind of scene setters, live shots at points in times. You'll see the SEC Network at Tennessee, but it's not like you're going to be able to sit here and watch Jaylen Wright run his 40, in my opinion. This isn't like NFL Combine coverage, but nonetheless, here are the participants for Tennessee's NFL Pro Day tomorrow or later today. Again, quarterback Joe Milton, cornerback Kamal Hadden, and running back Jaylen Wright. We know those three. Of course, they were at the NFL Combine. Also, 12 other Tennessee Volunteers. Linebacker Aaron Beasley, kicker Charles Campbell, tight end McCallan Castles, offensive lineman Jeremiah Crawford, defensive lineman Karat Garland, defensive back Gabe Judy-Lally, wide receiver Ramel Keaton, offensive lineman Ollie Lane, defensive back Jalen McCullough, running back Jabari Small, tight end Jacob Warren, and return specialist D. Williams. Now, not all these guys are going to get drafted. In fact, only, in my opinion, I can really only see maybe McCallan Castles and maybe Gabe Judy-Lally getting drafted. But nonetheless, a lot of these guys will get calls, and they'll get signed as undrafted free agent deals, and they'll get an opportunity in camp. And getting on scouts' radars, getting on coaches and NFL personnel's radars, a lot of the times the difference can be right here in your pro day. Mike Vrabel, no longer the head coach at Tennessee, but he's been at Tennessee's pro day each of the past couple of years. He'll probably still be there later this morning. I think he has like an off the field role up with the Browns? I don't know, but he'll get out there and hold a pad, and he'll take guys through drills, and I think that's kind of fun to see and watch. And my point is, a lot of these guys won't get drafted, but they'll still get an opportunity if you show out in pro day. So what all is going to come in pro day? Well, again, they'll go through measurements, they'll get their height, their weight, all that type of stuff. They'll have drills that they're choosing, so like position drills, backpedaling, bag drills, position drills, stuff like that when you get out on the field and work. You also take part in vertical jump, broad jump, the 40-yard dash, which everybody knows about, and that's the most overrated thing in football in combine, in my opinion. The 3-cone drill, and various shuttles. The day will conclude for these players with meeting with scouts and NFL teams, and they'll go and kind of talk and stuff like that. So that's really, really kind of cool. Jaylen Wright had a phenomenal NFL combine. See, he ran a 4.38 40-yard dash, had a 38-inch vertical, and 11'2" broad jump, which was second best broad by any running back in combine history. Joe Milton did pretty well as well. He threw the ball pretty well. Again, this is the time for Joe Milton to shine. Shorts, no defense. And I don't mean that as any disrespect. I'm just saying the wow factor. And it only takes one team to say, ooh, man, I love those intangibles. I see the game film. I understand what happened there, but he hasn't been coached by me. He hasn't been in my system. I can tweak this one little thing, and the sky's the limit for a guy like Joe Milton. This is his time to have those guys just drooling over what Joe Milton can do. Shorts, no defense, routes on air. And Joe Milton's going to have an opportunity to show out. And he did a good job at the NFL Combine, and he'll have an opportunity to do that here later today as well. So I'm excited to see what a lot of these guys can do. I think it's a real good opportunity for guys like D. Williams, for guys like Gabe Jeudy-Lally, for guys, like Jacob Warren. I think he'll get an invitation to camp potentially. And, of course, the guys like Kamal Hadden, Jaylen Wright, and Joe Milton. So excited to see what these Tennessee Volunteers do. We won't probably have, official times or measurements or, stuff like that. But, we'll do the best we can. We'll be over there covering it. And I'll tell you what I heard and what I expect moving forward on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, Josh Ward, he's going to join the show. We're going to talk a lot about Tennessee basketball. It's a win over Texas in the round of 32, and of course, its date with Creighton in the Sweet 16. That is coming up next for a segment we like to call Ward Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. This week's March Madness bracket, we're going to highlight a team, and it's brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out. It's a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The North Carolina Tar Heels can only be described as an armada. The 1 seed is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they secured a spot in the Sweet 16 this Thursday against Alabama in the NCAA tournament. I think Alabama's going to win that game, by the way. They're a favorite picked by many to make a run to the Final Four into the championship. The Iowa State Cyclones can be described as a pathfinder. They're built really, really tough, fun to watch. They've created a lane for themselves, entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. They have a day with Illinois on Thursday in the Sweet 16, and that should be a good game as well. What about the NC State Wolfpack, who had to win the ACC tournament just to get into the dance? Took down North Carolina in the championship game, and it's on now to the Sweet 16. Surprised us all with a powerful performance. Wins over Texas Tech and Oakland set them up to play Marquette, the 2 seed in the Sweet 16. They say let go life, win life, go rogue, and that's exactly what the NC State Wolfpack have done here. Take on the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. And lastly, I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy? It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leveled up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money is back. Because of the eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Josh Ward joins us next on Ward Wednesday. Hey, Josh, for the second straight year, Tennessee is on to the Sweet 16. It wasn't pretty. Didn't have to be. Tennessee did what it needed to do, and it's going to be playing basketball, albeit late, on a Friday night.
Yeah, of course, Tennessee would have liked to have shot the ball better, to not have had that close score late that Tennessee had to hold off against Texas. But the Vols did that, and Tennessee won the game in a Rick Barnes style, where their offense had opportunities to score a lot of points. That's been covered, but Tennessee is alive, and Tennessee has a good chance to get to the Elite Eight for the second time in school history. Tennessee has gone to consecutive Sweet 16s for only the second time in school history, 07, 08, the other time that it happened. And it's just so difficult to get to this point. It's easy to think about the expectation. The expectation was to get back to this point and then beyond. The goal is to get beyond this point. But what Tennessee has done this season has rarely happened in the program's history. So I do think it's important for fans to enjoy what has happened so far, while also recognizing the nerves that will be there late Friday night when Tennessee tips off against Creighton, trying to go back to the Elite Eight.
Was there a point in that game against Texas you thought, all right, there's a slipper, it's falling, seen this before, it's over? Did you ever think that during that game against Texas?
No, not that. Just because Tennessee's defense had played so well, and it was still so difficult for Texas offensively, despite the charge that the Longhorns had made. Knowing how Tennessee was playing, I didn't think that they would be rattled mentally. I did wonder when Jonas Adu went to the free throw line, down one, when Texas got the guy they wanted at the free throw line. They had to foul a few times to get Tennessee to the bonus, and I thought, tricky spot. And on the inbounds play, I kind of wondered, what are you doing, Tennessee? You could have called timeout, but the Vols inbound the ball, goes to Jonas. He knocks down the free throws. When that happened, I thought Tennessee was going to win the game. So I never thought that it had slipped away, but the anxiousness that fans felt over those last few minutes was warranted, because it could have gone the other way. Tennessee stepped up and made sure it didn't happen.
There's this thing called battered Vol syndrome. I think it was real on Saturday. For sure, watching the last couple of minutes go by the second half, but nonetheless, Tennessee got it done. Tennessee moves on. It will play Creighton in the Sweet 16. Tell us a little bit about Creighton. I know Creighton shoots a ton of threes.
It's a really good team. They do shoot a lot of threes. They try to shoot beyond the three-point line or as close to the rim as possible. And they have good personnel. They are experienced. They're not very deep at all. They had two guys that played 50 minutes and another that played 49. Their big three is really good, and they play a lot of minutes. They have to avoid foul trouble. They're good at that. I'm sure Tennessee will try to get them in foul trouble coming into this game, but their style, what they do, is not exactly the same at all. But Tennessee and Creighton have a lot of similarities. Tennessee's back in the Sweet 16. Creighton went to the Elite Eight last year. We're a point away from going to the Final Four. Both programs are trying to get there for the first time. Both programs have very good coaches who are respected in what they do. Barnes at Tennessee, McDermott at Creighton. And again, the big three, Tennessee kind of has a big three and then important players around them. I'd say similar for Creighton, Tennessee just going a little bit deeper, but defending the perimeter, avoiding foul trouble. Creighton's really good at it. Tennessee needs to be better at it, I would say, especially with Tobe Awaku, who I thought was so good against Texas. Yeah. He just had limited minutes because of foul trouble in that game. And then the style and the size is different. Alexander for Creighton at 6'4", Zakai Ziegler, one of the smaller guards playing in the country, but both are so vital to what their teams do.
Yeah, you kind of brought up Tobe Awaka and a couple other names. This type of game, outside of Dalton Knecht, who you could say for every single game, but who's going to thrive in a game like this on Tennessee's behalf?
Well, one of Adu and Awaka, I think, do need to step up and challenge as best as they can around the rim or in the paint area with Kalkbrenner, a 7-1 guy who is there to defend and does a really good job of making it challenging for opponents. Their defensive efficiency is so good, and the way they make things difficult for their opponent is so impressive. But an obvious player to bring up, who often this season, I think, Eric, we would kind of just slip on past because we assumed Dalton Knecht would have a big game. Let's see if he can have a big game this time. He'll get some opportunities. He'll have a chance to hit some open shots. He had some opportunities against Texas. They didn't go down. Let's see what he does. Let's see what kind of opportunities he gets. I think Creighton wants to force you into taking some difficult mid-range shots. A difficult mid-range shot for a lot of college basketball players is a good shot for Dalton Knecht with his ability to get the position he wants and to rise and fire. So let's see if he can do that in this game and hit those shots, because if he does, then that changes what Tennessee's offense is.
If Tennessee does get by Creighton, moves on and plays the winner of Purdue or Gonzaga, what do you like about Tennessee in that matchup? Obviously, Tennessee's already played Purdue, and Purdue's going to be the favorite there. Let's just use Purdue as the example here, because I'm not sure how much of a wizard you are on Gonzaga basketball this year. What would you like about Tennessee in a rematch against Purdue?
Well, I will say that there can often be the question, understandably, which team would you rather play? I don't know what the answer is there, because Gonzaga has played really good basketball as the season has gone along. They were dynamite in the second half against Kansas, which has had its issues recently, but Gonzaga destroyed the Jayhawks in the second half. They're really good on both ends of the floor. But, if it's a rematch with Purdue, the obvious question is, what do you do with Edey? We were just talking about avoiding foul trouble. Everybody's had a difficult time avoiding foul trouble against Edey and Purdue, and that would be the case again in this game. I would give Purdue the advantage going in, knowing that Tennessee would have a shot. They played earlier in the year. Zakai Ziegler is in better form physically than where he was in the early part of the season. So Tennessee would have a really good shot against either team. Rick Barnes and his staff would be prepared to go up against either Mark Few's staff and Gonzaga and what they want to do, or Matt Painter and Purdue. They've already scouted that team this season once. Yeah. So it's supposed to be hard at this time of year. So if Tennessee gets to the Elite Eight round, that's going to be a big-time challenge to make it to the Final Four, but it's supposed to be.
A team that has beaten Creighton twice this year, it's Providence. Are we making more than what it really is about the relationship between Rick Barnes and Kim English? I mean, how easy is it to sit there in staff meetings or sit there and watch film and scout, and you got a question, be like, oh, let me just call Kim. He played him 3 times this year, beat him twice. Are we overblowing that, or is that just a nice resource?
I'm sure it's a nice resource. I'm also sure that we can overreact to the impact of that. I'm sure that we can on the outside.
Is Kim English not wearing an orange foam finger #1 Vols this morning? I thought he was.
Yeah. Swain and I joke that they're just Rick and Kim are both carrying around portable chargers in the phone, and they're not hanging up this week. They're just going to stay on the line together all week and make sure that they continue to scout together. So I'm sure it helps. So many coaches, especially with Rick Barnes in this case, know each other, that there can be ways to figure things out. But how much will that help in getting ready for Creighton? I think Rick Barnes and his coaching staff can also put on the tape and see what Providence did, see what other teams have tried to do against Creighton, what Creighton has done against other teams, and it becomes pretty clear quickly what they do, what you need to do against them. Then it's about something I'm sure fans get tired of hearing, but it's true in this case. Do you execute? Do you hit shots? Do you avoid turnovers? Both of these teams have obvious strengths to point to, I think, to say that's going to get them to the next round. It's a matter of how good they are at executing in those strengths on Friday night.
We'll see if Rick tells the interviewer at TV at halftime, like, hey, I got to go in here and call Cam. I think that's what he's going to do. Last thing, it's a dominated hoops week, and deservingly so. Tennessee football going to scrimmage for the first time this spring. What are some of the things you're going to be looking for or looking to hear about scrimmage #1 from certain players?
Well, a lot of the storyline has been newcomers, so I'm curious their reaction to how the tackle spots have looked on offense with Lance Hurd coming in and John Campbell Jr. coming back and moving over. The secondary, that includes newcomers, how they look, how they perform against some newcomers at wide receiver. Obviously, what Nico is doing is a big storyline. But the newness to Tennessee football, even with the experience that comes back, all the experience on the defensive line, which has been one of the most talked about groups this spring, right after Tim Banks' comments last week about the expectations for the defensive line, but the new players and how they will change these position groups, in some cases creating competition like in the secondary or with Matthews, Staley, and Chris Brazzell coming in at wide receiver, how they're pushing those guys that are coming back, either looking to take on bigger roles or looking to hold on to their spots they had a year ago.
He is Josh Ward, one half of Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal, noon to 3 weekdays, and you can sign up in the show notes right now for the free Josh and Swain newsletter every Friday morning. Josh, what's coming up the rest of the week?
Yep, a lot of basketball talk getting ready for Friday night's game. We have the whole week to get ready with the late tip on Friday. Rick Barnes was on the show on Tuesday, so would recommend you go back and check out our conversation with Tennessee's head coach, as well as the sleigh ride, Ron Slay, for a full hour in hour number 2 on Tuesday. And thanks for the plug with that newsletter. It'll add to getting ready for the game on Friday night when it goes live. It's free every Friday morning.
Josh Ward, go follow him on Twitter at Josh_Ward. Josh, as always, man, thanks so much.
You got it. Thanks, Eric.
All right, and that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols here on a Wednesday. We'll continue on and get you set for Tennessee and Creighton in the Sweet 16. We'll tell you everything you need to know about scrimmage number 1 from Tennessee football spring practice. All that and more is coming up on a Thursday. Locked On Vols. Until then, stay safe, everybody.